Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 10th of, November. Look at that beautiful move. Made the new highs and faded off quickly. This is part of this whole election uncertainty that's starting to grow now. See, everything was copacetic, rosy. Biden was done. They were looking for stimulus through the roof. And then all of a sudden, they filed those lawsuits and they actually had some evidence attached to them. And that put a serious spook on that is continuing even to this day. So it was an indication that things are going to heat up and that uncertainty in a big way has returned because the propensity as Arizona moves closer, will it flip over? Still don't know. There's only 14 or so thousand votes separating that one. After they begin to count, another 80,000 more to count. Whether Georgia and some of these irregularities will flip, as well as Pennsylvania being bandied about now with some of these constitution. And the interesting part about these lawsuits is they were constitutional questions about equal protection and those tend to get heard. So it will be interesting. But that new high definitely was expected from what we were seeing from this rise. Will we see any short activity? This just didn't seem to be much of a short move as much as just your buyers just faded off really quick. Because, we're looking at science still well below negative 7.5 even from a daily. Did uptick some, but not enough to flip anything around at this particular stage. The NQ, a little bit more dramatic from its move, and it was already a little bit softer anyway because you already had a little bit of the steel fade from an intraday. But again, it didn't quite make the new high, which is interesting. It got to it and rejected. So this becomes more the control, which is something we talked about months back here, where the NASDAQ was leading the upcharge. It also led the decline return back. And so the S&P has been the lag as the tech play has been going on. But it will be interesting to see if there's more of a pushback here, because a lot of this has to do with the social media and some of the blowback that you're getting, especially as you get the reports that, Facebook was responsible for a lot of the funding for the Georgia counties that, had these irregularities with a massive increase in the number of votes that came out of some of these specific counties. And so will there be a significant tech pushback as they see that as interfering with the election, not just from their digital platforms? So that's another up in the air, and this is where markets start to get a little skittish when it comes to that. And of course, we talked about the disaster that is the Eurozone as it gets into more. Actually, we're about to go into a full lockdown here in the Tuscany area. For what reason, no idea, because as I mentioned, they talk about these stories of the hospitals being full, but I've been at them, nobody there. So it's an interesting, narrative that you hear versus what you see. What do you believe? Empty hospitals, or that people are lined up in hallways and stuff? So it's kind of strange, but oh well. The news is always correct and true. So we'll go with that one. There you go from a gold. So this just scared the bejeebies out of the gold bugs who were thinking that we were going to have massive stimulus, that it was all set for Biden to run through and put out another 4 or 5 trillion, and no. So that puts serious deflationary pressure, especially with the Eurozone about to collapse, literally. It'll be interesting to see what they end up doing. So this is what it looked like from an intraday standpoint. It was just a massive run-up as they felt that the conclusion was taking place, and then by mid-morning they started to hear about the lawsuits, and then as they got filed, that really started to put the kibosh on the situation. I think it's a little cleaner here from this is the Power 2. If I can get it to go on a candle, that would help. There it is, the DOC Power 2 cross. Just because I marked some of the positive extremes. So it began at the beginning here, right back at the 35.16 range, early on, right at the beginning, right at the blue line change of date. And As we shut up, we created a whole series of new ones. Could even go right about here in the 35, 55 range was a secondary one. That was the start of it. We already had the 3570 for the second stage of it from, well, before. And then as you made new rounds up a little bit further towards the 3618 range, we had a couple of DOC spreads that started up early. That were the beginning cursors, but they were taking place under just like a consolidation move going there. And then when we broke up to the secondary high, that's when we had achieved plus 7.5 on the DOC red. We got up to the 13s here, and obviously that retraced partway into it. It takes a little bit more guts to stick with the kind of short reading that was going on through there, even as the DOC red was falling. The problem is that within the decline there, you never really got the spike of the power 2 going above. That happens much later, right over here at the beginning of the decline. That's right where it turns red in that particular stage. So it's a little tougher within this intraday play. No question about that one. Made it much more complicated. But then as we faded, everything was pretty much clear. We ended up with no DOC steel reset coming through quite a ways until we ended up with a nice pop back up to the 100%. And these ranges are huge. I mean, staggering. Of course, this is why the margin requirements are way up for this period of time, and it's not going to end anytime soon. Don't think so, because if they deem more credible the threats, you could see broader sells, because again, you got to transition from one asset class to another that requires selling, repurchasing, and that creates volatility. So it's not always going to be one-sided direction down. What you'll get is you'll get a huge sell-off as they're liquidating, and then a turnaround going back in there. And this is going to ebb and flow with where the perception is on legal challenges, whether they're dismissed, those kinds of things. And it's going to be fun. Just party all over the place. As always, though, not for the faint of heart, and not something to be worried about as much as just following the readings that we get, because it's pretty straightforward from that standpoint. As always, though, trade well. We'll talk again later, and I'll see you on the Skype chat.